everybody, and welcome to another episode of VETchat. Today we are carrying on with our Menopause Awareness celebrations, and I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Wilson from Vets Now. And today we're going to be discussing why menopause matters and why every workplace should care. So welcome, Chris. Thank you for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having me. It's really exciting.
Before we get started, let me introduce our guest today. So Chris is People Services Advisor, looking after absence and wellbeing at Vets Now, the leading provider of emergency veterinary care in the UK. With over a decade of HR experience in the financial and telecommunications sector, Chris joined Vets Now in August 2020 during the COVID pandemic. Specialising in mental health and employee engagement, Chris ensures that Vets Now has the relevant support in place for its 1,700 employees and acts as a point of contact for line managers to support their teams as best as possible. He's passionate about diversity and inclusion and advocates the importance of promoting a culture of health and well-being, fostering a better working environment for colleagues, but also understanding that happier, healthier workforces makes veterinary profession thrive. He's been at the forefront of several initiatives to support Vets Now teams, including providing access to mental health support through Simply Health, the benefits platform, which connects employees to financial support, and the Menopause support package, which Vets Now launched in 2022. So welcome, Chris. Hello, lovely to have you here today.
Hello, yeah, it's great. It's great. First podcast, so very exciting, very exciting. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you for doing it with us.
No worries, no worries. It's an important topic, so glad to chat about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want to start just by telling us a little bit about your role at Vets Now and particularly your interest in the menopause in the workplace, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, I'm a people services advisor or HR advisor, if you want the, for another way of putting it. And I look after all of absence and wellbeing for Vets Now. So that can be from the initial point when an employee goes off absent, linking them with the line manager to look at what support do they need from a workplace perspective to either help them back into work or other issues and concerns that we need to address in work first off to get them back. And then the wellbeing part is relatively new into my role. I've always had a bit of a touch in over the past 3 years since I've been at Vets Now, but it's become a big part of my role in the past few months. And it's really looking at what initiatives and supports do we have available for our staff to make their lives as comfortable as possible whilst they're at work, and making sure that they also have the resources available to do the self-care piece as well when it comes to their own well-being. There needs to be that sort of joint approach to make sure that they're getting as much as they can for their own health in that regard. But moving on to sort of my interest in the menopause in the workplace, it's with our staff, they're predominantly female. I think we've got roughly around an 88% female workforce. So that in and of itself is just a reason to obviously focus on that. It's a topic that's going to affect all women in some degree, in some way, shape or form. So making sure that they have the resources, one, available for their own information and understanding is definitely key to making sure that they're happy and engaged. And two, making sure that our line managers have the information that they need in order to hold those conversations and reduce that stigma around menopause that can still be there, unfortunately, and allow employees just to feel safe in having that those discussions with whoever the manager is, I suppose, regardless of level, etc. So those are where my interests are, is really making sure that we have that two-pronged approach and making sure that our employees can do their own things for self-care in regards to the menopause, information, resources, etc. And our managers are also equipped to properly give the support that's required.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. And when you launched the support package in last year, in 2022, have you found that that's had any positive impacts? Have you noticed like a big difference since that's been brought in?
Absolutely. It was our previous colleague, she no longer works with Vets Now, and she was a massive champion of the menopause support package that we were looking to put in place, and that formed part of the wellbeing strategy group that we also run at Vets Now. And with that, we've seen a great response from our colleagues with an initial focus group that we'd set up, really making sure that when we were looking at menopause and what support we wanted to put in place, It was what employees wanted and needed, and it wasn't something that we thought that they might need. So it was getting that information from them directly, and the response to that focus group was outstanding. I can't put it any other way. The response we had was great. The numbers of people that were looking to join and contribute their ideas was fantastic. And then since then, the response that we've seen to the Peppy app, which is one of the big parts of the support package that we use, was astronomical. I think looking at the percentage of people that we targeted initially, we were looking at, I think we ended up being 241% more than the target that we had initially put out. And the most recent stats that we have is that we're actually at 412% of our targeted range from that initial launch. So the response that we've seen to that app and the feedback that we've gotten from it has been fantastic. It's absolutely great. And the support that Peppy can give, and I know we'll probably talk about that a little bit later, but the support that they can give is just fantastic. It's an invaluable service that I can encourage every single employer that you will find a benefit from it, regardless of your demographic and work. It makes sense to look at different supports in that regard.
Yeah, fantastic. That sounds incredible. And well done for not only doing that, but for getting such great engagement. It's absolutely brilliant. And I guess an 88% female workforce, you'd really hope that you'd have a really big impact like that.
Absolutely, yeah. It wasn't. We definitely hoped that there'd be a good response, but the response we got was not anticipated. Is probably the way to put it. We thought it would take a little bit, for lack of a better term, more work from an awareness perspective. But our guys were just so sold on that straight away. Immediately wanted the service, and it's been fantastic since then. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Have you noticed any sort of direct link with productivity in the workplace since having launched the menopause related, the menopause content to everybody?
Yeah, it can be hard to quantify that in some regards. However, we definitely have seen areas where productivity has been increased. One of the areas of the support package is understandably all our vets and nurses have to wear particular scrubs, and they're not always the comfiest and most helpful when someone's going through certain menopause symptoms. Let's just sort of leave it in that regard. And being able to have that as an option has meant that our staff are feeling much more comfortable when they're doing their role. They're able to even just, for hot flushes is obviously a very common symptom of the menopause, not the only one, and being able to have that temperature regulation whilst they're on shift in that emergency environment, it means that they're not having to stop as much as they need to. They're able to continue with their work a little bit longer while still having that ability to take breaks, etc., when they need to, if that's something that's required. So definitely from that regard, we've seen a positive response in regards to that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic. If there's anybody sort of listening who would love to, take some steps in their workplace, to create a more supportive and inclusive environment, have you got any tips for what people could do around, obviously the scrubs is a great idea. Is there any other sort of tips that you'd have that you could share?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just being open and honest with your staff. If you haven't focused on menopause up until now, okay, you haven't done that. Admit that maybe it's been an oversight on your part, but give the promises of what you're looking to do going forward and reach out to your staff about it. Don't assume that you know what the best thing to do is. Your staff knows what's best for them, and it makes sense to reach out to them, get their understanding, and it also shows that you're looking to do things in the right way, not just for a tick box exercise, if you know what I'm trying to say, but some companies can sort of fall into that trap of. So that's my first piece of advice would be speak to your staff and get that right. And the second part is you're not going to be an expert on menopause unless you're a dedicated company that probably is about menopause or you have medical experts. So reach out to people who are the experts and get those support from them. How do they roll that out? What have they done with other organisations that's worked particularly well in their demographic, etc.? And how can you adapt that to your own workforce? Because trying to get managers to become experts on every single medical condition that someone could come up against is a near impossibility, and it's not something that we would be required for them to do. So having somewhere that they can go, right, we can get the basics right and work, but for long-term consistent support, let's reach out to the experts and see what we can do in the workplace and what they can do for you outside of work. So it's not being ashamed to say, we don't know what we're doing, but we're going to find out. That's fine to say. It's making sure that you're just taking the right steps and making it a priority, first and foremost.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's great advice, Chris. Thank you. I think as well, as part of this Menopause Awareness series, we spoke to Charlotte and Lindsay from the BVNA at the start of the week, and Lindsay was sharing some really good advice about what they're doing in practice, and it's just little things, and it's talking, and it's being honest and open and having these conversations. And to your point, nobody's an expert, but if you just try little things, it can have a big impact.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not got to be, it's not grand, massive gestures that need to be made. It's just having those small conversations to get people thinking about it, talking about it. And it just, that initial part will remove that stigma so much that we will have employees come to us and they say, I am struggling with these symptoms, rather than feeling as though they've got to mask it under different reasons. It allows us to go, right, this could be similar symptoms to that, having the conversation about going to their GP, giving them the advice and signposting them to Pepe. Those don't sound big, but it's a massive thing for that person to feel listened to. And that's the biggest part, is not ignoring it, which I think, at least from the information I've been given from the women I've known who's went through it, it can be easily ignored or maybe passed off as something else, where actually these are menopausal symptoms that need to be addressed. So we are not the experts. The employee knows their health, listen to them and work with them.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Thank you. And what about sort of from a male perspective? Because obviously most of the workforce in vets now are female, but obviously there's still, lots of males working there. Do you have any advice for them around how can they support with these conversations as well? Because it can be more difficult for them to understand, and as people who will never go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. Vets now is a female-driven sort of organisation just in general. We've got our board members are majority female. Like I said earlier, about 88% of female workforce. It's a fantastic company, and to see that contrast to your normal company, let's just say, for example, it's really nice to have that female-driven one. And I think the biggest advice from a male perspective is, whilst you may not be directly impacted with the menopausal symptoms, you will know someone who goes through menopause or has been through menopause in some way, shape, or form. So would you want to see your mother, your daughter, sister, whoever it be, struggle with that? No, you absolutely wouldn't. So you wouldn't want your staff to struggle in that sense either. And again, it's just having conversations. It's even admitting up front and saying, look, I may not be an expert in what you're about to talk to me about, but I am more than happy to listen to what you've got to say and then go away and speak to and find out whatever I need to. You're on a learning journey just as much as the employee will also be on that learning journey. So it's just about listening, being understanding to what they're saying, and treating it like any other health condition. I always sort of look at it, if you want to talk about sort of female specific areas that you need to support with. Pregnancy, for example, not everyone's going to get pregnant or have to go through the same pregnancy sort of process. However, they'll all be affected by it in some way. So you have a policy there to make sure that we support our pregnant employees.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we do that for menopause as well? It's the exact same scenario. Not everyone's going to be impacted by it in the same way, but they're all going to be impacted by it in some way. So it's making sure that, one, you're just open, honest, understanding, and just transparent. Don't pretend that you need to know everything, because you don't. There is no expectation from anyone that you know everything, but there is an expectation that you will support your staff. And that's the biggest thing. As long as you're trying to get that tone and messaging right, it'll come across the right way. Don't be worried about saying the wrong thing. Explain yourself to the person that's talking to you. Explain the points that you're trying to get across. And if you're really, really unsure on what to do, link in with your HR department or your health and safety department, who should definitely have a little bit more awareness. But if not, then it raises that point of, why don't we have it? And it should then lead to further conversations on training, etc., in that regard. So, yeah, that was a long answer to what you just said, but really it's just have the conversation. Don't go in worried or panicked, and just actively listen. Don't listen to respond, is always what I say. You're listening to make sure you're hearing what they're saying.
Brilliant. Yeah. Did you know the Webinar Vets Virtual Veterinary Congress is back for 2024? Starting on the 5th of February, we have 10 hours of continuing education with speakers such as Sarah Heath, John Chissy and Samantha Taylor, and many, many more. We'd love to see you there. If you'd like to get involved again this year, or if you'd like to join us for the very first time, please click the link in the description below to find out more. What sort of motivated you to get involved and be such an advocate for the menopause, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so it's sort of twofold in that regard. The first one is my mum had a terrible time when she went through menopause. She went through different medications with her GP. She would constantly just get knocked back and told, no, there's nothing wrong. And I remember mum struggling with intense pain as part of her menopause for quite a lot of years, to the point that it really restricted her doing anything. She lived in the house for a good 5-6 years with the exception of work. And my mum's one of those people that if she has to work, she will do it regardless. She could be at death's door and she will still go to her work to her own fault. It's a good thing and a bad thing that she has. Yeah. But seeing my mum go through that at her younger years, I've seen the impact it had on her overall. One, from a mobility and even just like an exercise perspective, she used to enjoy going to like keep fit classes, etc. That all stopped because she couldn't cope with the pain. She then, when at work, she was doing well, but she would always come home in terrible pain, and that would impact her for that full night. She would need to just, sit, do nothing, etc. And then, from a mental health perspective, it really, really affected her because it impacted her confidence. Above, I suppose, to an extent, it made her feel like she was going crazy because she felt that something was happening. Yeah. But the response that she was getting from her GP was, no, it's not that, or it can't be that yet type thing. How this person knows their health. So the first part is seeing my mum go through that. I do not want to see any other person ever have to go through that. And secondly, it's just the right thing to do. There doesn't need to be more of a reason than that. It's something that affects 50% of the population in the world, and like I say, in some way, shape, or form, in varying degrees. Why wouldn't you want to help somebody that maybe is suffering with those symptoms? And as a business, if we don't invest in our staff, why should our staff invest in us? Is really the question that I have. And that is looking after them as much as possible. So yeah, there's definitely been a personal impact to myself from regards to my family, but personally, I just think it's the right thing to do. So we should be focusing on it regardless of what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think, obviously, the veterinary profession as a whole is very female? Yes. We've touched upon that already. And we have this huge retention problem right now in the veterinary profession as well. Do you think, in your personal opinion, if we address the menopause better as a whole profession, we'd have less of a problem with retaining staff?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, one of the biggest fastest growing demographics just now is women over 50. And with that age range, they would very likely be experiencing some symptoms or have experienced some symptoms of menopause at that point. And it's estimated that around 900,000 women have left their jobs due to menopause in the UK. So whilst we can't apply that full number to the veterinary industry, a significant proportion of it will be, because as you've said, we're a very female-driven
profession.
Thank you. That word went right out of my head there, and I was just sitting panicking. So yeah, the profession is very female-driven. So even take 10% of that, for example, and add that into the veterinary industry, there's 90,000 employees that we've lost due to that. And that's a massive number. And with that demographic growing and growing and growing, it's only going to get bigger from there. So if we put those resources in from the start and do it more as a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach, what we'll see is that women who do join in the younger years, when they aren't impacted by menopause, when they do continue with us, if they see that support being there and spoken about, they'll have a sense of, this company does look after me. They understand that I grow and I change as life goes on. I want to stay here to get that support. So yeah, absolutely. Ignoring menopause just now, you're just throwing money down the drain. It's probably the easiest way to say it. And it might seem like there's a big investment needed at the start, but if you calculate and looking from a purely commercial perspective, calculate the retraining cost, the recruitment cost, etc., that all comes with recruiting somebody that does leave, you're well going to outweigh that if you just look to support in the menopause and support those employees that need it. So absolutely, I say that a lot of companies are missing a massive trick there. I'm not supporting, and I'd even go as far as to say I know we're talking about the veterinary profession, but further than that, there's absolutely other professions that could benefit from just supporting it. Absolutely, yeah.
Totally agree. It's a really good point you make as well. You know, people in practice might think we don't have the financial, you know, capabilities to support this right now. But if people are women at such leaving the profession at such an alarming rate, you know, the recruitment costs, you know, we need to start being more proactive rather than reactive.
Yes, and that's the biggest challenge. Is I think so often just now companies are reactive to changes with, you know, climate, etc. There's a lot that you need to act on, but these are, I think, basics that are absolutely key to get right. And yeah, the initial cost might seem, wow, that's large, but if you do sit up and tally X, Y, and Z, how much is that going to save us in a year? You'll probably end up more than balancing out and potentially having more money to play with. And removing the commercial aspect, imagine the years of experience that we lose based on that. Those women have probably worked for us for, you know, a considerable length of time, regardless of how long that is. They've went through that training, they've brought years of experience with them. They're taking that away and our business loses out on that. Why would we want to lose that? It's so invaluable, because whilst, yes, we can sit in the support office and the board do their decisions, etc., without the staff in the clinic, we don't have them. We don't have a business. So investing in them, again, it's just the right thing to do, because you're losing so much if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So looking forward, what do you hope to see in terms of menopause awareness and support in the years to come in the veterinary profession?
So I really hope that companies take a little bit from our lead. I'm not saying that we're the only company doing anything, but developing a really good support package for their staff who can access that at any point, providing robust manager training so that when they're having to have those conversations, they're not having that nervousness that comes with it. I do not want to be a manager, because I can't imagine the stress and stuff that comes with certain conversations that you're put in those situations. And if we don't have those available for our staff, they're going to panic. And there's another area where you could then lose out because they're not feeling supported by their company. So my biggest thing is really hoping that all companies take a lead from this, create a robust support package, ensuring that it works for their staff, their demographic, and looking at continually reviewing it. Not just saying that once it's in, it's fit for purpose and it's fit for purpose forever. It's continually reviewing the offering, and is that still in line with what your company needs, or have you progressed to a point where, you know, menopause is handled really, really well at your work and it's not impacting staff as much as it was? They've got those support areas in place. Is there something more that we need to do now and look at additional support, longer term support, whatever that may look like? I'm hoping that it's more spoken about. We remove that stigma in regards to it. And yeah, that's my point, is just listening to your staff and really taking on board that approach. You shouldn't be treating menopause. I'd hope that we get to a point where we don't have to treat menopause as its own standalone issue, if you know what I'm trying to say. It's someone's health. So why are we need just menopause support? What we need is robust health support that also includes menopause. So that's one way of breaking down that stigma that's attached to it. Because if we've got an employee who says, I've got a bit of a health issue, or I've got a bit of a menopause issue, you're sort of almost signaling it out in that sense, because you're directly talking about menopause, which is great. It's great to get that chatting about, but it should just be a normal health condition like everything else is. It's a very similar sort of proposition to what you do with mental health. It was very much treated as its own standalone thing, totally different from overall health and well-being. No, that should be included. So why isn't menopause? And that's where I'd like to be, is that it's, for lack of a better term, and it might not sound too great, it's just another health condition that doesn't cause that worry in people when it's mentioned. You know, it's just, all right, okay, let's see what we can do. Yeah.
Brilliant. And if our listeners now are feeling like really inspired, they really want to get started with this, do you have any tips where people should start, you know, to really sort of contribute towards positive change in their practices?
Yeah, I think from a business perspective, if people are wanting to do that, it's first off creating policies and procedures. Those are the first things that need to be in place, because that shows your commitment to that. You hold yourself accountable, and you also hold your other members of staff accountable too, to make sure that change is happening. If you're looking to do it sort of on an individual level though, And if maybe your company isn't doing anything in that regard, it's taking it to either your line manager or board level and saying, look, this is something that we're missing out on. We've tried a little bit about the stats today, and those are very easily found online. And I would encourage everyone to do a little bit of research about that impact. And if they need a business case, so to say, for why they should invest in menopause, your business case is there. So it's really challenging in that regard. If it's from an individual perspective and what you want to do from yourself or maybe your family, if you're a male, is speaking to the people who are impacted by it and understanding how it impacts them and putting yourself in their shoes. How is that impacting them day to day? And that's probably going to change your approach. And also just open up that relationship a little bit where your wife, sister, friend, whoever it might be, can just feel comfortable to have that conversation and go, God, I'm really struggling with X today, and this is what's happening. And then if it's something for yourself, the first thing I would do is check and see what's available locally, support groups, etc. Because that's a great thing, is having other people that you know that you can talk to and get that support from. And also educating the people around you. Don't feel ashamed to talk about it, because you shouldn't. It's not something that anyone should feel ashamed about, because it affects all women in some way, shape or form. I feel like I'm just repeating myself here. You're probably going to put a parrot on this and it would have been similar, but talk about it. You shouldn't feel that way or feel ashamed about what's going on. It's part of life, and people should respect that. And I always say that your health comes first, and that also includes menopause as well. If people aren't willing to listen or talk about that, you need to make sure that you're still getting a chance to talk about what you need to and get that support where you need. So a few different angles that I gave from that there, but I think definitely different ways in which you can do things, but it's just allowing yourself to be you and not being ashamed of that. Then that's really a lesson that everyone could learn from, to be honest, but absolutely a key part is just letting yourself feel how you feel. Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful place to end, Chris. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was brilliant advice. And you never would have thought that was your first podcast. You were fantastic. So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
And if anybody wants to sort of get in touch with you, or might have some questions they want answering, is there a best way for people to contact you on LinkedIn or anything like that?
Yeah, so on LinkedIn would be great. That's probably the best place to get me. It's the only social media I have, actually. I don't have any other ones. So yeah, get me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to chat to anybody about anything whatsoever regarding menopause or well-being just in general. But yeah, if they could contact me on there, I'm more than happy to pick up with anybody.
Oh, brilliant. That's great, Chris. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me again.
Okay, thanks a lot. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.